We'll grab your headsets on. Welcome to PTN 106 here on stage 6. This is our first session of the day. I'm glad you could make it. A few housekeeping things today that we just start with. If everyone could turn their phones to silent, you might not be able to hear them, but I'm sure the presenters will, so make sure we can do that. If you have some difficulties with your headset, please raise your hand and we'll endeavour to get people out and around to find you. If you find someone near you that has that problem, they probably can't hear me say that now, so just give them a hand as well. What I'll do is I'll find the clicker, and we would love your feedback. So if you haven't done this yet today, the event app is available to you to help build your calendar and see what's on, but also give feedback at the end of the session. So I'll leave that up there for 2 extra seconds. And really, let's just get started. I think this one from the sessions here on stage 6 wins the award for the best title. A Tsunami of Lambda is a really interesting title and definitely had me excited about what's to come. I don't think anyone here wants to have a Lambda party in one of their accounts and see what that kind of bill looks like. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up the team from Australian Unity, PwC and AWS. Come on stage, guys.
After you. After you.
Thank you. Imagine this. It's a Thursday afternoon, just after 2 p.m. You're the head of cloud. You look after the cloud platform for a multi-regulated organization. You've had a busy day, back-to-back meetings, business stakeholders, architecture reviews, dev teams. Your coffee's gone cold, and your mind's already started to wander towards the weekend. In the background, you've got a cybersecurity analyst trying to reach out to you about some spike in log events. Nothing critical, just a little noisier than usual. You get your ops team involved, and your mind drifts back into the weekend, planning about the school pickup, maybe even the weekend, the cricket game that your son's playing on the weekend. Now fast forward a little bit. Everything's changed. You've already had to call in a favor to get your kids picked up from the school. You're in a virtual war room, locked in with your CISO, your CDO, your major incident management team, your enterprise general manager for enterprise technology, just to name a few. And this routine spike in logs doesn't seem so routine anymore now, does it? Today, we are here to tell you a story about when logs attack and how governance, observability as governance, helped us surviving a data tsunami. Hi, my name is Abhay, and I look after the public cloud platform and DevOps capabilities at Australian Unity.
Hey guys, my name is Alok. I'm a solutions architect at AWS, and I look after Australia Unity as a customer.
And I'm Michael Ewald. I'm a managing director at PwC, and I lead in Sydney our engineering practice. Thank you.
So here's how we're going to take you through this journey today. We're going to talk to you about the events that unfolded on this Thursday afternoon that changed a routine spike in logs to a full-scale cyber response. Alok and I will then walk you through the events of the day on how observability helped us understand what was happening in our environment in real time, but then also helped us reduce the impact of the incident. We will also tell you what our learnings from the day were. And finally, Michael will come in and talk to us about how observability as governance can help us navigate through a storm, and how missing this opportunity can cost your organization. Now, a little bit about Australian Unity. Our purpose at Australian Unity is simple but powerful: to positively impact the well-being of millions. Our vision is to enable what we refer to as a real well-being for millions of Australians, our customers, our members, and also the broader community, through commercial and sustainable businesses. We operate across 3 very deeply connected industries or areas: health, wealth, and care. And with this, we have APRA, ASIC, and the Australian federal government regulate the businesses that we operate. And as you can imagine, with this, we have a very complex and multi-regulated environment that we operate in. Now, Australian Unity Group operates businesses across 4 different domains. Wealth and capital markets, where we provide diverse investment and trustee services, including real estate services, bonds, funds management, and real estate planning. Residential aged care, where we provide high quality, person-centric care in a small residential setting. Home health services, where we provide in-home care, health services, and mental well-being to support independent living. And finally, retail, where we support our customers through a variety of health insurance and personalized banking services, including loans, savings accounts, and personal banking accounts. Now, let's wander back into this war room that we just walked off. We've got our Chief Information Security Officer, our Chief Data Officer, Major Incident Management Team, and also our Enterprise GM of Enterprise Applications. We've also been joined in the room with our trusted partner from AWS. And now we're going to walk you through a few scenarios on how we navigated this tsunami and how we identified the root cause and finally came up with a solution. So first and foremost, we needed to know if it was a cyber event. And as you can imagine, the severity of this was very high.
Thanks, Abhay. And because the severity was very high, the first port of call that we had was to rule out whether this was a cyber event. So we pulled in AWS security teams and our shield response teams, which are our 24/7 response teams, to kind of figure out whether this was a cyber event. They were able to categorically rule out that they were seeing any signatures or any suspicious activity in the accounts, and then we ruled out saying this was definitely not a cyber event.
Our next hypothesis: could this be an application gone rogue? Or could we have pushed a change to our production system that has caused this havoc? As you may have noticed, because this incident now was categorically removed from a cyber event, the severity has gone down from a very high to a high. We were still not out of the woods yet, because the cyber response plan was still in action.
So we started to look through logs and metrics across the application portfolio for Australia Unity, but we did not find any applications where metrics were elevated, and so we ruled out that an application was acting rogue.
If it's not a cyber event, not an application gone rogue, could it actually be our platform itself? And as you may notice, because we don't have a root cause yet, the severity was still maintained as high.
So we reached out to AWS service teams, and we looked at our internal dashboards, and we found out that all services were green. We also reached out to our product teams and asked whether any changes were pushed to any of the services, and we didn't push any changes in region, so we ruled out this hypothesis, and it corroborated with whatever data that we were seeing.
So by this time, this data tsunami had impacted us for hours without a root cause. We've already ruled out a potential cyber event, an application or a platform misconfiguration. So at this stage, we decided to take a subset of log and do a deeper analysis of the log themselves. No, we didn't see any anomalies at first, but a breakthrough came when one of the operations engineer floated a hypothesis of a potential duplication of log events. This led to a deeper analysis of a much larger data set using a different observability tool, and this hypothesis was confirmed in the war room when we identified one log event that was duplicated over 80,000 times, still counting. At this stage, for the first time since it had all started, we knew for sure that it was a large-scale data log duplication event that had caused this tsunami. And as you can see, as a result, we were able to reduce the severity of the incident from a high to a medium. But because we still didn't know the cause of the duplication itself, we were still not out of the woods yet.
So we started looking through the log processing pipeline and to see whether we can kind of corroborate this data. And actually we saw that the Lambdas which were processing the logs had very, very high elevated metrics. So this confirmed that indeed the log processing Lambdas or the log processing pipeline was a potential cause of the tsunami.
So the logical next step was to disable this Lambda, this rogue Lambda, and see if that actually subsided the log tsunami that we were encountering. But because we still hadn't nailed this as a root cause, the severity of the incident was still maintained at medium.
So once we disabled the Lambdas, we saw that the tsunami had subsided completely. And this was kind of, we were able to confirm that indeed that was the log processing Lambdas which were causing all the elevated logging events.
So this led to a forensic analysis of not just the Lambda itself, but our whole logging service. And because we were now able to confirm that the root cause of the issue was the large-scale duplication of the events, the severity was reduced from a medium to a low.
So what we did was then we started looking through what the Lambda was doing, and why was it creating this cascading effect of re-ingesting data. And we found out that when it was processing a certain type of data payload, it was trying, so it was exceeding its maximum payload limit, and then it would send those data logs back for re-ingestion, and that was having like a cascading effect, and the storm was just kind of multiplying over and over again.
Now, the war room was finally closed. The weekend plans could actually still not be resumed because we still had the tedious task of post-mortem and the leadership reviews and the leadership feedback that would start. But the incident was now finally closed.
Over the next coming days, we worked with the Australia Unity team to kind of figure out how do we fix this in configuration and in code so that this would never happen again.
Perfect. Cool. So it took us about 6 hours to go from identifying a spike in log, invoking a cyber response plan, identifying the root cause, and resolving the incident to confidently open our organization back for business again. Had it not been for the right observability in our organization, this incident could have taken us days to recover, which would have created a much larger impact not only on our production systems, but also our customers who we support across our health, wealth, and care industries.
Thank you. So it was great to see observability, when used correctly and set it in the right way, that it's able to resolve issues and actually provide transparency and certainty when you get a close of that. Now, before I go on, because I want to talk around, that's really great, but what about the future observability? So before I do, I just want to have a quick show of hands. Who's really comfortable that they fully understand the term observability? Just raise your hand if you're really comfortable with that term. Okay, thank you. I've been speaking about this topic for many companies for how many months now, and I realize observability is a very technical term. So what I'd like to do for the rest of this talk is I'll talk about observability, but replace the word observability with transparency. And the word transparency has a superpower. This superpower is predictability. As you saw in this example here, we're able to go for something which would normally take a day or multiple days into a very short period of time as well. So what can we do around observability? But before we start, what I want to talk about is where we are today. So traditionally, most organizations are still pretty much in silos, and yes, we've got DevOps, and we want to bring all that together. But traditionally, we still work with the business. In the business, when it comes to observability around operational intelligence, they're using tools which are very static, somewhat disconnected from your real-time metrics that we saw from the platforms here. And you might be using tools like Signavio or Archer. And now I'm not going to name all the tools. I'm sure at companies you got one of everything, like monitoring, observability, you got one of everything. Not to the note where the tool is good or not. What I want to highlight here is there's certain tools which are disconnected from the realities of what's happening. Then we have our technology stack. Now, with the technology stack, we're doing a pretty good job. As you saw represented here, either we've got some good observability in place or we know what we need to do for instrumentation to get the root cause analysis done in the short period of time as possible. But then we've got our third parties. And our third parties might be, it could be your hyperscaler. And for the purpose of this talk, there's only one real hyperscaler public cloud. It's AWS, the yellow brand. I'm not going to mention the other ones, so don't turn my mic off. But then you've also got your system integrators as well. And that might be a global system integrator where you've outsourced potentially that risk around the operations of some of those services as well. What sort of observability have you got around that as well? Yes, you've got the platforms that they're managing as well. But what about the quality? This is really, really important because I deal with lots of organizations, and I was at a big bank myself, and one of the things we talk around is quality of change. And yes, you may have SLAs, but that quality of change might lead to technical debt. How are you measuring that type of observability as well? Because that's something you need to be thinking around for the governance of operating your business as well. So why am I bringing these points up? You may have alluded to some of the words I've used around transparency and governance. We think there's a missed opportunity around observability, and actually we're starting to see this globally as a trend as well. And I'm going to probably point and start with some of our regulators. And if you have the joy of working in your organization, if you're a financial organization around CPS 230, I don't know if you're panicking, it's about July 1st coming up, but essentially what the regulators are starting to do is, it's not good enough anymore to understand that why your service went down that's supporting a critical service. They want you to be proactive. What are you doing to actually prevent that, knowing about those services come down? And then you start to realize that you need to start stitching these services down together. So we're probably a little bit behind in Australia, so UK is probably leading the way here, and they've got this regulation called DORA. And those who put your hand up around observability, I'm not talking about DORA metrics. DORA stands for Digital Operational Resiliency Act. So I'm letting you know that, so when you hear your risk people start talking about it, you know it's different to DORA metrics. But essentially what we're seeing organizations move to, and rightly so, is they really want you to understand from the top layer, what are your business critical services? Now, it might not be financial services, like healthcare. There's a real healthcare problem here around if services go down, people may not get the health services they need. So literally it could be like a life and death situation. So what are your critical business services? Then, what are the technical services that underpin those critical business services? What are they? How are you understanding around your full end-to-end chain that's supporting that? But where we're going is a level deeper as well. As I mentioned before, you may have outsourced that risk. And if you're outsourcing that risk, what controls and observability you have around that to ensure that the support you're getting for those technical services or business outcome are being met? Now, we've worked with some organizations, and typically from experience, when we map this out, you've probably got about 40 to 50% of that. So we've had this where we've had an instrumentation and a dashboard, and we had customers say, like, what are those gray bits? Well, they're the bits you're not measuring. And why that's really, really important, because you don't know what's happening. And when it comes to critical services, if you can't see it, you can't measure it, how are you going to fix it? Moreover, so how are you going to improve your service around being proactive, around ensuring that you start to use things like synthetic testing, or doing some things of being proactive to ensure that you're meeting those SLAs or SLOs for your business critical services as well. So we see observability as a steel thread bringing this down together to bring together what we call continuous compliance. Again, so a lot of times when you're doing these compliance reports, you might get a spreadsheet, you might get a data dump from here, bring it holistically. But there's nothing better than going to the source of truth. So at PwC, we're used to do remediation. So sometimes we come and we do audit, and I think we're the new breed of auditors. We're not coming in and look at your spreadsheets and do like a evidence-based tests. We say, show us the code. There should see the look of white faces when engineers want to see we do code reviews. But this is where it's going, because when there's a crisis, forget the documentation, we want to throw it out the window because it's probably obsolete the week after it's been written. We want source of truth, and this is where observability is the real hero. And as you saw, as good a job as Alok and Abhay did on their situation here, observability was the real hero of the day to stitch this all together. Now, talking a bit around observability as governance, and we're talking a lot around run the business, okay? Operations run the business. But there's as I mentioned before, a missed opportunity. What we're seeing around a governance tool is around, what about change the business? How are you thinking and using observability in your world around change? And change is inevitable. Now, change might be driven from regulatory compliance that they want to push through, and you've got to put CPS 230 controls, or might be SOC if you're looking critical infrastructure, or even if you're e-commerce. There's a new Privacy Act changes coming next year around consent. So how are you measuring that consent? Because there's huge fines for each breach of consent. You have to make changes all the time. So how are you maintaining that continuous compliance as well? Now, change is also coming around from new features coming through, or might be around transformational. So you've heard about this thing called AI. Now, it wouldn't be any talk without the rise of AI, so I have to bring it up in this particular one as well. But AI is probably the first technology since Microsoft Access Database to actually jump technology and go straight into the business as well. So what we're advocating is the use of AI to promote this change as governance as well. And what we mean by that is, imagine a scenario where you want to use AI for an integrated approach, so that you're looking at your policy documents and using AI and a reasoning agent to compare what is the regulator actually saying, and comparing what's your gaps, where are your blind spots from a policy perspective and a cyber perspective as well. But then also using AI as a tool to generate your observability controls, measuring your compliance as well, to make sure you're actually covering all those particular gaps as well. And then obviously using AI as a predictability tool for changes coming through to make sure you're covering off all those complex scenarios that you will encounter as you're running your particular business as well. So as I conclude, I know we covered a fair few topics here today. And it's a lot. So as I've mentioned, I've been giving this talk around for many companies for a while now, trying to shift the wheel. And then what I've encountered is it takes probably a few times for people to really sink in, because it's really a mindset change around. So if I go back, if this works as well, it's a bit of a mindset shift change if we look around tying in your business processes and your OKRs or SLOs into those controls, using real time, using the instrumentation, but more importantly, going down from the technology layers right down to that vendor layer as well. Because you want to be measuring quality. And why quality and change predictability? It's actually a feeder around predictability of change impact and solution and incident impact that's going to feed back up the chain to some of these incidences what we have as well. So there's a lot here to digest. So when we walk away today, there's probably what do I want you to walk away with? Probably the one thing to walk away with is, besides coming to our booth and come and talk to us over there, I have to say that it's performance review time. I've got my bosses here in the audience. But seriously, what I want to walk away with is, this is achievable. There are organizations doing this today which have real-time dashboards and measuring their critical business services. And I'll give one example. Let's say insurance paying a claim. So we all know when there's those events happen and storms, you want to get paid that claim. Measuring that claim, so understanding all the business processes, steps that it takes to make that claim, mapping that through to all the technical services underneath that underpin each one of those critical business services. And some of those services might be manual as well. Then looking at all the particular layers, from the network API layer right down to the platform, right down to the network, to have a real-time dashboard to see how it's likely to respond. Injecting synthetics into those particular processes, so we get predictive ability to look around where do we need to pay attention around funding and around risk remediation as well. So this is achievable. The one thing to walk away is, it's about getting started. It's about picking out what your services are, mapping out like what you need to do, and then why you need to do it as well. So with that, we're going to conclude. Abhay, Alok, myself, at the end of this talk, we're going to be at the back here, happy to answer some particular questions. Understand if you want to geek out and get really technical, we can answer those too. We're up for that as well. So we might conclude with that, and thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your summit. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was great. Before everyone heads off, we would love for you to give us some feedback. We'll put that back up there. So please do through the app. We appreciate it. I think there was some great lessons learned in observability there, and also that mental model of observability equals transparency. I think that's a really good way to put it. The next session in here is in 15 minutes, and it will be a security session based on anti-malware patterns on the strategies, on the cloud. I should really get that right. So feel free to stay. If you're up for the next session, it's in 15 minutes time. If not, please leave your headphones on the chairs. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.